So let's start right here with these domains of well-being. This doesn't go away because somebody develops dementia. There's two books that have been written about this, Dementia Beyond Drugs and Dementia Beyond Disease. So those are two resources. And it defines dementia as a shift in the way a person experiences the world around them. So think about that as a definition. A shift in the way that the person experiences the world, but they still experience the world. That's the point. So if our care of a person with dementia is person-centered, and let's add this word to it, relationship-centered. If it's person-centered and relationship-centered, there is still quality of life to be had. There is still independence. There is still dignity to be had. What we want to do is focus on those interactions. In support groups, we talk about connections all the time. We talk about connections. We've got to be careful. Now, I know we've got a mix of professionals and family caregivers on today, but where we can get ourselves in trouble is we can get caught up in the woulda, coulda, shouldas of caregiving. What I would have done, could have done, should have done. And if we land there, that's depression because that's the past. Another place we can get caught up is the what ifs. What if, what if, what if? That's the future, and that's called anxiety. When we're when we have a loved one with dementia or we work in the field with dementia, you know what we've got? We've got today. We've got today, and that's all we've got. What if we focused on connection? Focus on connection. Now, we're going to talk a lot about interactions and how those interactions are going to change, and they are. That's just part of it. As the disease progresses and moves forward, the interactions are going to change. And guess who's the one that has to change and accommodate? We are. We're the ones that have to accommodate. We're the ones that have to change because we are the one that has that 3-pound brain. We don't have that failing brain. And that's what's happening with a person with dementia is their brain is failing. So we're going to talk about, and this does a really good job of showing us, we're going to use past knowledge, history of the person that has dementia to be able to communicate with them today, because we're going to talk about in a couple of slides that theory of retrogenesis that many of you have heard us talk about on our programs in support group. The more we understand that, where are they in their developmental age? Because regardless of what type of dementia they have, whether it's Alzheimer's, vascular, Lewy body, frontal temporal, Parkinson's, or any of the other over 100 dementias, we're going back. So it's important to know the history. Now, even if we don't know their history, can we meet them in a place and interact? Of course we can. Of course we can. It's also important to see the person living with dementia as an evolving person. They are changing all the time. We can get really comfortable when they hit a plateau. So they're rocking and rolling along on a plateau, and we get comfortable in that plateau, and then they've got a progressive disease, and here they go, starting to turn, starting to change. We've got to go with them, which means we have to accommodate the disease. They can't. They would if they could. It means we've got to change the way we communicate, and we've got to change the activities that we do with our loved one. So I do want to encourage you as we go through this and we're talking about activities, please don't ever try something once and say, well, that didn't work, because it might work in 2 weeks or it might work in 2 months. You never know. Or it might work tomorrow or this afternoon. Another way to think of dementia is about broken connections. If you think about the broken connections that are going on in the brain, we have a program that we do on communication. And if you haven't watched that program, I really hope that you have family members watch it. It's on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and type in West Center for Dementia Care, click on our channel and then put in communication. We've got a program called Communication Through the Stages. And in that program, we talk about how communication changes and why. We actually look at slides of the brain. There comes a time where we're going to use a lot more gestures, facial expressions, tone, and body language to communicate because the words aren't going to mean anything anymore. That means the activities are going to change. We want to make sure that our loved one with dementia is still able to make choices. We want to make sure that they are still included. And we want to make sure that we're not adding to the stigma of dementia. So let's look at some of the best practices. First, we've mentioned person-centered. Let's even call that relationship-centered. We want to contribute to their sense of well-being, making sure that we're staying as social as possible throughout the course of the disease. We want to maximize independence and dignity. And you're even going to hear us call that earliest stage of the disease, we're going to call that normalization. We want to keep things as normal as possible. We're going to talk about the areas of wellness, but let's start with, I've already mentioned this theory of retrogenesis. And I'm just going to give a brief recap for those of you who maybe haven't heard it before. The theory of retrogenesis. This is where a person with dementia is going back in time developmentally. Think about that little infant, that brand new little baby. They're not feeding themselves, they're not walking, they're not talking, they're not toileting themselves, they're not grooming themselves. They're really not doing a lot for themselves, are they? One thing they can do, though, is they can make their needs known. And a person with dementia is always going to be able to make their needs known. It's just going to change. So everything that we ever learned, our loved one with dementia, over time, it's as if they're unlearning everything. They're going back. Does that mean we're going to start treating them like a child? No. But we've got to think about where are they developmentally. Here's an example. If our loved one is at the developmental age of a 5-year-old, can a 5-year-old dress themselves? Of course they can. Is it always going to be appropriate? No. Is it important that they make choices? Yes, it's important they make choices. But if we hand a 5-year-old a menu, they're going to be overwhelmed with it and they can't read it, even if they can pick some words out. But if we hand them the menu so it's in their hands and we say, you want a hamburger or a hot dog? Now I just gave them choices. I get to make the choice. I'm still holding the menu. See where we are? Dignity, independence, respect. Go into the closet and we see someone standing at the closet and just looking and looking and looking because there's just too many choices and I'm overwhelmed. But if I go in and have, here's the red, here's the blue, which one would you like? And even then, if you get a blank, you look really good blue. Okay, I'll wear the blue. But they still made the choice. They still made the decision. It's kind of what the theory of retrogenesis is about. So let's first talk about life stories. Life stories. If we can base our interactions on that history, so some of the things I want you to think about when we're doing a life story, knowing the facts, knowing their educational background, what makes them feel valued? If you're that family caregiver and you've known them for a long time, what made them feel important? What made them feel like they had meaning, like they had purpose? Also, what are their habits of a lifetime? What brought them joy? Even if they haven't done it in 5 years or 10 years. Here's an example. I had a gentleman one time, I was talking to a family at intake, and they told me that he had played a harmonica as a young man. They said, but he doesn't do that anymore. I said, well, let's get him a harmonica. Let's see. He could play that harmonica. He was at the place. Family was shocked because he hadn't played it in years. But he was at a place in that theory of retrogenesis, developmental age, where he loved the harmonica. It was still there. It had been a habit of his lifetime. Music, art, anything that they may have done, gardening. Well, maybe they can't get out and garden anymore, but can we look at coffee table books, the big photo books of gardening? Now, another thing I want you to think about is, has there been trauma in their life? I mentioned we're going back. We're going back through developmental age. Well, what if there was some trauma? It could come up again. What if there was some abuse? What if they are a veteran? What if they went through a divorce? These are things to keep in mind with our loved one when maybe we see a challenging expression and when we're working with them on activities. What are some things that make them feel anxious or frustrated? And if they do get anxious and frustrated, what helps alleviate that? Now, keep in mind, they're evolving, they're changing. So, what works in the earliest stages might not work in the later stages. So, we've got to change. We're the ones that have to change. Key life events, think about those as you think back over your loved one's life. And then, what were their hobbies or their recreational activities? So, think about those life stories. If we're able to tell a person's life story and we place our loved one in a nursing home or in an assisted living, that really helps the staff. If we've put together a book, I'm going to show you on the next slide some of the ways that we can create a life story. It also helps that resident, if they're placed, share their own story, and then it helps the family. So let's look at, how do you create a life story? I've seen some families do some great jobs with this, especially on something like Shutterfly, where they get some photos, they go to Shutterfly, and they basically write their loved one's story in a picture book. And they create a book for them. And in fact, I would always say make about 5 of them, because who knows what's going to happen to it. You don't have the original picture there because you've made it into a book, but other people might want copies of this book too. Family might want copies of this book. And what a great thing to have, as I've been with residents, for me to be able to read a book to them and it's their story. If they're in the middle or the late stages of the disease and you can read them their story, you can read them the story. Now, keep in mind also, and this is hard for us, you know what we want to fill that book with? Pictures of the grandkids. You know what they need? Pictures of their mom and dad, pictures of their brothers and sisters, pictures of their cousins, aunts, uncles. Because this life right here, where there's grandkids and great grandkids, that's not where I'm living anymore. I'm living back when I have a mama and a daddy and a grandma and grandpa and cousins and uncles and aunts. So let's do that story. Let's do my family of origin story. You can write it out, like I said, in a book. You can make photo boxes. You can make collages that you hang on the wall. You can do recordings, or you can make what's called a memory box. Some other life enriching activities that we're talking about, whole person wellness. So we're going to start looking at, right after this slide, we're going to start going through the stages of dementia. We're going to look at 4 areas: purposeful, productive activities, fun and leisure activities, self-care and wellness activities, and restful and restorative activities. Now, a lot of these are going to cross over. It's about taking the activity that I'm going to talk about and you either upgrade it or you downgrade it to meet them where they are today. Today. The very activity that we did yesterday might not work today. If they didn't sleep well, they didn't eat well, I don't want to take my medicine, we might not be able to do the same thing that we did yesterday. But if tonight I sleep really well, you're in a good mood, I'm in a good mood, the sun's out, tomorrow I may be able to do it again. So let's start with those early stages. And again, we're going to call the earliest stages of the disease normalization. It's where we're going to use a lot of reminders, setups, and cues. And we are focused on independence and we are focused on dignity. So some things to consider. Likely in the earliest stages, they're going to be fairly oriented to time, oriented to person, and able to recognize familiar people. Also, in the earliest stages, typically, we're still able to do some travel and they can still enjoy kind of simple games, hobbies, and reminiscing, especially. They may continue to enjoy things that they've always done, and they can function fairly normally with, here's the key, reminders, setups, and cues. So let's keep doing the things we've always done. We're just going to change it a little bit. Some things that we're also going to see in the earliest stages is there may be a lot of immediate loss, which is where we're going to get one of those challenging expressions. I'm not saying behaviors, expressions, where they're asking the same question over and over and over. Well, there's a reason they're asking it because they don't remember. And the reason they don't remember is because they've got a diagnosis of dementia. If it was something else, they'd have a different diagnosis. So for us to get aggravated at them because they're asking the same question over and over isn't going to do anybody any good. They don't remember. Now, if they're asking the same question over and over and they're in the earliest stages, a lot of times you can write down the answer if they can still read and comprehend, which they probably can in the earliest stages. But one of the things that we find that's affected early is sequencing, the order in which I do things. So if the activity you're doing requires a lot of steps, they may have a hard time with the steps. It's not that they can't do it, I just can't remember all of these steps. So we then accommodate that and slow it down one step at a time. We're going to do this and do it. And then this. Now, does that mean it's going to take more time? Yes. But we're not worried about time. We're worried about connection. Connection. Another thing they're likely going to lose is initiation, where they're probably not going to come up to you and say, hey, do you want to play cards? And if you say to them, do you want to play cards? You're likely going to get no. Well, do you want? No. Well, how about if we, no. No is one of the first 5 words that we learned, and it remains because it's one of the first 5 words that we learn. So rather than saying, would you like to, what if we said, could you help me with this? Can't get this puzzle box open. Would you help me get this puzzle box open? And then they help you get the box open. Well, I'm just going to sit here and pick out all of the corners. Let's see. You want to help me pick out corners? Could you help me? And you start making it about you so that we're not going, they never want to do anything. They don't have initiative. But we made it about us. I need your help. Oh, I know you don't want to play, but if you could just help me sort these cards out, whatever it is. They can get really lost in complex activities. So let's not even do that. Short attention spans, and keep in mind they're going to have good days and bad days just like we do. Some of the things that are preserved, long ago memories and long ago emotions are going to be preserved in the early stages. They most definitely, this is throughout the course of the disease, they're going to understand your facial expressions, your tone, and your gestures. Even if they develop what's a flat affect, where they look like they're not there, they are most definitely there. The amygdala is not damaged as much as the hippocampus, and that amygdala holds feelings and emotions, and they can reach you. They're going to do really, really well with routine. They, again, in the early stages, typically can read and follow a simple instruction, and they're probably going to realize when they make a mistake. Their social skills are still going to be intact. Some other strategies for success: before you get started, get all the supplies. Because the last thing we want to do is finally get them engaged, and then we've got to run and get something, because that's a great way to lose them. Use those visual cues. A person with dementia for a very long time will mirror you. They will do what you do. So if you're sitting square shoulder or across from each other, many times they'll just do what you're doing. We also want to tap into that procedural memory or muscle memory. So if there's someone who's always crocheted, they'll be able to crochet for a long time, but you might have to get them started. And once you get them started, off they go. Muscle memory kicks in. We're not going to ask those open-ended questions because then we're setting them up to fail at a conversation. And then if they do start to talk to you, don't interrupt them. If they do start to do something with the game or the activity, just let them do it. It doesn't matter if they're playing the game right. It doesn't matter if they're putting the puzzle together right. It doesn't matter if they're doing the recipe right, does it? Because if I'm doing it too, I'm going to use what I'm mixing up that goes in the oven. Theirs isn't going in the oven. Mine is. So they can put in all the sugar they want. They can put in all the vanilla they want because mine's the one going in the oven. A couple more things about the earliest stages. There is an app that oh, this is such a wonderful app. It has changed over the years. It's the last bullet point here. It's called My House of Memories. And again, you're going to get these slides, so you don't have to write all this down. They've added sound to it. It's such a good app, and it's free. So it's called My House of Memories, and it is divided by decades. So if your loved one was a child in the 1950s, you can click on 1950s, click on toys from the 1950s, and there'll be Tinker Toys, and then there's sounds of playing with Tinker Toys. Or there will be one of the newest ones I saw that was added is people out in a chicken coop and they're getting eggs from the chicken coop, and there's the sounds of a chicken coop. So not only do you look at the picture, but there's a sound that goes with it. The other thing about this app is you can add your own pictures. So you can make your own personal house of memories, and it's on an app. Now, a regular phone, it's really too small for someone with dementia to see, but an iPad, it's great. So that's going to be a really good one to look at. Some other activities that I want to talk about in these earliest stages. Many of you have heard us talk about the best ways to distract someone with dementia is food, music, animals, and children. So you're going to see each of those listed on all three of the stages. But pet care, early in the disease, they should probably still be able to do a lot of pet care with reminder setups and cues. Playing with children, watching children, tutoring children, reading with children, doing things that have to do with art. And again, please don't say, my dad would never, because I've seen it over and over again where somebody will do different types of art, but we can't say to them, do you want to? What we say is, I'm getting ready to, would you help me? And the way I start many times is, I can't get this open. Would you open this for me? Well, of course, get it open. That's a therapeutic story to get them to come over here, sit beside me, and help me. And then before you know it, here's this man doing watercolors. Dancing, singing, reminiscing. Make sure you use that music from their past, the music that's their music set, the music from our teenage years. Taking a walk, being outside. Right now, it's March, so most of us have a window of time here where we've got some really pretty weather. Let's get outside. And then again, let's change it for wherever they are in the disease. We may still be able to walk and plant in the garden and dig in the dirt, or they may be to where they can sit in the sun. And that's it. And it's okay. That's all they need. That's all they want. Touch is important. That's part of staying connected. And then being able to contribute to their sense of worth. One of my favorite things to do with people in the earliest stages, we do this a lot in our day program, is to make tie blankets. So you can go to something like a Michael's and you buy tie blankets, and all you have to do is tie a knot. That's it. All the way around, you tie a knot. And then you take those blankets and you donate them to animal shelters. You donate them to a nursery at a church. You can also go to a clothes closet at a church or a food pantry somewhere and volunteer to sort early in the disease. They can still sort. And then I've got a purpose. This is a bigger list, things that you can do. Somebody who's hold on, earlier in the disease. Now, again, let's say you get out the dominoes and you're shuffling the dominoes and you start to play and they're not doing it the right way. Does that mean they can't play dominoes? No, we're just going to play it a different way. We're just going to play it a different way. There's a woman who's in our support group who's played cards with her husband for years, and she still plays cards with him. She plays his game. So maybe we're just laying down red on red, black on black, 7 on 7, whatever it is, but we're connecting, connecting. So this is a really good list. And again, you're going to get this list, so don't try to write everything down. A lot of people like to rummage. So let's create a rummage area. I've even had families get a rummage room where they take an entire, maybe it's a guest room or something, and they put stuff in the drawers that it's okay if it goes missing or they disappear somewhere. And we create a rummage box or a rummage drawer. A lot of people with dementia just need to be busy. They need those hands to be going. You can create boxes like a holiday box. So we're going to go through this holiday box and look at things and touch and smell and taste. Let's put some candy canes in there. You can do a box on sports. You can do a box on cooking. You can do a box on animals. I've had people take boxes where they were really big boxes, and I've had people do shoe boxes. Here in Fort Worth, we actually got together with the Junior League, and we've got memory boxes in the libraries, so you can go and check out a memory box, but you can make your own. Another really good thing throughout the course of the disease, but especially earlier in the disease, is that physical activity. Let's make sure that we're staying physically active. Let's walk, let's dance, let's garden, let's stretch. I've got a picture there, and it's easy to do. Anybody who's ever had physical therapy has done one of these where you pedal, 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 pedal. Get one for yourself, get one for your loved one, put them on a TV tray in front of you. And every time that commercial comes on, race each other. Let's see how far and how fast we can go during the commercials and what's happening during that time. I'm pushing that oxygenated blood up to my brain. Rolling coins, that's another one. If they still have those fine motor skills, let's roll coins. It has a meaning, it has a purpose. Let's find things for them to do so they feel like they're contributing to the household. So we're folding towels. It doesn't matter if they don't do it exactly like you want them to do it. It gives them something to do. We can sort nuts and bolts and screws and nails. Go and get some little small, I've had people use baby food jars. I've also had people use little like Rubbermaid containers. And we just get the big old bunch of nuts and screws and let them sit there and sort if there's somebody who likes to sort. All right, let's move to the middle stages. We're going to call these middle stages the supportive stages of the disease. We're still maximizing dignity and independence, but now they likely need help with everything. They need help. There's going to be some things that they can still do, reminders, setups, or cues, but they're not total care yet, but we're needing a lot of help. The mid stage of the disease is the longest stage of the disease. Because if you think about middle, what's that mean? There's a time when they're early mid, and there's a time when they're mid late. So depending on the time of day, depending on, again, what's going on, they may be able to do a little bit more some days. Some days are better than others. So some things to consider with the mid stages. Lack of awareness is going to be a lot higher in the mid stages. So I learned this the hard way. If you're painting, and we've got those cups where we're going to rinse out the paint, don't use a styrofoam cup. Don't use a regular cup because then the water turns red and it looks like something good to drink. So use something else for them to wash it out in. I went to Hobby Lobby and I found what looks like little paint buckets. It actually looks like a little paint bucket. And I put water in it. Well, then it was a paint bucket. Nobody was drinking out of it. But when I put it in a cup, I had people drinking the paint water mid-stage because I'm not able to make the. Now, I would never say you're drinking paint water because to them that isn't paint water. It's some red, yummy something to drink in a cup. That was my fault. Here's a statistic also. 80% of the time when someone with dementia has a challenging expression, it was our approach or the environment. Our approach or the environment. We have to do better. We've got the 3-pound brain. Mid stages, they're going to be a little more restless. All of their senses are changing, and they're just not going to have that self-awareness. And so abilities are really going to start to change. You're going to start to see changes in their fine motor skills. But a lot of people can still do those one-step directions. You can see here, and I'm going to give you some resources of where you can get things like you see that gentleman doing. It has a bunch of locks on it. It has things that you can do with your hands that are very busy. A person with dementia sometimes will get really honed in on something like a puzzle or a board like this and will do it for a long period of time. They may still have social chit chat at this time. They're still going to do really well with a routine. They usually still can do some sorting. During this time, they're probably going to be using a walker, a cane, or starting into a wheelchair because think about where are we going? We're going back, 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 back. We're starting to become incontinent. Eating is going to change. Think about how we learned to eat. First, we were fed, then we used our fingers, and then we learned spoon, fork, knife. Knife probably goes away during this stage. Fork starting to go away, using the spoon a lot more, starting to do finger foods. Vision changes. Early stages of the disease, it's like we have on blinders. Mid stage is like binoculars, so they're not going to have this vision field. A lot of folks in mid-stage can still read, but they might not comprehend what they're reading. This is where we have to work to make sure we do not pull away from them. We want to continue to connect, connect, connect. They're going to do better in smaller groups. A lot of people during this stage, this is where maybe they don't want to be in big church. There's too many sounds, too many people, the lights are changing, or they might want to sit in the back, or they might just do better in small group. Keep in mind, as their vision changes, we want to be in their field of vision and then continue to support them. These are some mid-stage purposeful and productive activities. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, those things are stored on the right because they're rhythmic. So many times they're still going to be able to count and fold or mark something for you or put a stamp on it. An example of this, I had someone and it was Christmas and they were doing Christmas cards together. It was a daughter with her mother and her mom couldn't sign her name anymore, but she could use a stamp. And so the daughter got her some Christmas stamps and she was putting stamps on the cards. Cooking and baking, we can still do that with instruction. That's where maybe they're sitting at the table with you and we have the ingredients and they're stirring and they're mixing and they're making. It doesn't have to be theirs that you're putting in the oven. You're putting yours in the oven, but they're still part of smelling and tasting, tactile. They're still part of it. One of the worst things we can do to our loved one with dementia is to say, go on in there and watch TV. We've got it. We don't need you in the kitchen. You're in the way. That's what they're going to hear. Let them be part of it. Because think about a life without meaningful interactions, it's lacking opportunities for fulfillment, and they still need that. In the mid stages, many times they can still do things to help other people. So maybe during the holidays, I know at Hobby Lobby and Michael's, they have little ornament kits. We're going to make ornaments and give them to the grandkids. Or we're going to get things and we're going to take them and donate them. Helping around the house, washing dishes. Okay, maybe they wash them and they don't use soap, and you've got to go back and put them in the dishwasher later. It's okay. Still folding laundry. Maybe they don't fold it the way you want them to. It's all right. Some fun or leisure things to do. Going to socials, going to entertainers, going to church, listening to a singer, watching a show, going to a sporting event, especially if it's one that has kids involved, going to a Little League baseball game. Somebody in support group one time was a little bit apprehensive about taking her husband to their grandson's football game. And we said, well, what if you just brought your own chair so you don't have to go up in the bleachers and you just kind of sit near the fence? She said she's not even sure if he knew the football game was going on, but he loved being out there. He was outside, there were kids running around, and it ended up being a good time. She took a little cooler. It was something she never would have tried before, but she tried it. Self-care, some wellness activities, things that we can do. During these mid stages, maybe doing some of the games where you're matching, playing a matching game, again, sorting, board games with big pieces. We've all seen the checker set that's on it looks like it's on a rug, and those checkers are this big around. They make giant Jenga. They make giant Connect Four. They make giant sets of cards. Wordplay can be a lot of fun. You get I like doing it on a big piece of paper that you can stick on the wall so that we can both see it. Or if I'm just with one person, let's get a notepad and just pick a letter, any letter. Well, I picked the word C. Let's name all the words we can think of that start with a C. Sounds simple. Do it all the time. Let's think of everything we can think of that starts with a C. It's kind of like categories. Let's name every boy name we can think of. And you do it with them. And we're just going to list. Still doing physical activity, the best that we can do physical activity, strengthening exercises, using the we. The Wii has bowling, and the Wii has tennis, and the Wii has activities, and then that can go around their wrist so that it doesn't end up being thrown. Restful and restorative activities. Doing that hand massage, palm to palm signals, because there's lots of nerves here, and this means I'm safe, I'm secure, you're here with me, you've got me. There's a website I'm going to give you in just a little bit, and it's going to have rings with different types of fabric on it because they're becoming sensory, because that's the last stage of the disease where they like to feel and touch. This one's velvet, this one's satin, this one is corduroy, this one is furry, and we're just touching different things. Their world starts to come in, and it slows down during this stage. And so the activities that we offer do not have to be go, go, go. They can be sitting on a porch swing and listening to the wind chimes for a long time. Time doesn't mean the same thing. Rocking in a rocking chair. What is rocking? It's self-soothing. Some of you might be doing something self-soothing right now. You may have a pen in your hand and you're with that pen. Or maybe your legs going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It's the same thing as rocking. We're self-soothing. And a person with dementia will start doing repetitive actions. But because their filter's going away, it might look like bam, 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 bam. I'm hitting on this chair. It's the same thing as if I were sitting here rocking. Just doesn't look the same because our filter says don't do that. Their filter doesn't say that. Try reading to them. I used to be a volunteer with hospice, and the number one thing I was asked to do was to read the Bible to people. They would hold it most of the time. They'd hold it and I'd read it. So we were doing it together. Reading things like devotions, Chicken Soup for the Soul, things that are uplifting. Being able to be a helper is still really, really important in the middle stages. And there's something that's called restorative care. Your loved one's going to go in and out of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy throughout the course of the disease to be able to tap back into muscle memory and keep them independent. But there's also restorative care. And this is where we maximize a person's level of function and we minimize that decline. It helps with those ADLs, those activities of daily living. So here again is a list of things for these mid stages. We've talked about most of these. Enjoying snacks. You see where we're moving towards sensory, things we can hear, things we can touch, things we can taste. We're still going to give visual cues. We're going to make sure that we're safe by watching out for the paint cup, things such as that, using music as therapy. Let's make sure that we get to the late or the severe stage of the disease. This is our comfort stage. This is our sensory stage. They still have all of their senses, but they've changed. They can't filter out background noise. Vision has come down to where it's like a monocle and it's on one side or the other. So that vision has come way, way in. Their world comes in. They can still taste, but they mostly are going to taste sweet. So they may crave sweet. Touch is very different, but they can still feel. Of course they can. But this is why water doesn't always feel good. We can get concerned about them not wanting to bathe. Well, water might not feel good. So we've got to be careful that we use like a rain setting in the shower. We're going to be using a lot of nonverbal communication at this time. You may hear the word no a lot at this time because we're getting down to those last 5 to 10 words. So we're going to do the things that we can that are sensory. They're going to need physical assistance with everything at this stage. So they can hold that paintbrush, but they might be holding it with me holding them in a hand under hand, where I actually have their hand, but it sure feels like they're doing it. Don't pull away because you're not getting a response. They may appear at this time to have a flat affect. That amygdala is still intact. They can still feel, they still have emotions. Don't talk like they're not there. They are still there and they still hear. We've got to go really, really slow during this time. I want to show you this amazing video of a room that's called Snoezelen therapy. You can create your own at home. There's also a therapy that's similar to this that's called Namaste, where you have a Namaste room. And this can be for 15 to 30 minutes. And there's research that's done on this. So we're going to watch this. I think it's about a 2-minute video.
Snoezelen it is a relaxation program. That's certainly a huge benefit of it. So somebody that perhaps is agitated or overstimulated, it's something that they can go in, they can look at the bubble tube, the different colors. For others, it can be very stimulating that people want to come in and they're really exploring the environment. And that's actually what Snoezelen means. It means to relax and to explore. That's what that word means. When people come into a hospital, as much as we try to give them, and we try to give them as much as we can because we care for them, but they lose so much. They lose the ability to have that independence. They might have lost their house and their car, and there's so many things that they no longer have control of. So when we get them in this program, it's really about them having control. I think definitely they do like the big bubble tube. It's just kind of interesting. And when they see this big, huge cart coming and we plug it in, it's quite exciting for them. And they're able to change the colors, which is kind of neat. They also like the fiber optic cables, and they change color as well, and they can touch them and feel them and divide them. Sometimes they braid them. So they can do all sorts of things with that. It doesn't matter where a person is cognitively. I think that everybody has potential, especially that potential to enjoy life.
Now, think about it. You don't have to go out and create an entire room, but what could you do to create something like this? And I'm going to give you some resources, but some other things that can be done in those later stages. This might be where we end up using some baby doll therapy. I'm usually not a huge fan of baby doll therapy, but I have seen it do wonders when it's used appropriately. You'll also notice on here, there are robotic dogs and robotic cats, and they are made for people with dementia. I had a client whenever I worked for the Alzheimer's Association whose mother was very, very exit seeking because she was looking for her babies. Well, we got her some babies and she stopped exit seeking because she had babies to take care of. That picture on the bottom there, also the picture on the top, where they have a baby and they're taking care of it, or they have the dog. And again, please don't think my loved one would never, because too many times you go out and maybe you get a weighted pet, because now the weighted animals, and you can get an 8 or a 10 pound, they're called weighted therapy pets, and they're stuffed animals that are weighted. And they sit up here on my chest, and I've got my cat that I'm just petting here. And I've just seen it work over and over again. So please consider trying it. Some other things that you can try, anything that's rhythmic. So something like a tambourine or a maraca or the rain. What are they called? The rain, where you turn them up and down, up and down. And again, I'm going to give you a resource here. Fish tanks can be great. Bubble lamps can be great. Still being able to look at short episodes of TV. This might be where you use YouTube and you go to children laughing, baby animals, maybe holding some fresh flowers, and we're going to make this flower arrangement together, looking at pictures, singing and chair dancing, also being able to dance while we're sitting in the chair. There is still exercise that we can do, physical activity that we can do, but they're going to need assistance with this, of course. One of the things you can see in this picture in the upper left, this gentleman has what's called a fidget blanket. And on that fidget blanket, there are things that Velcro, there are things that tie, there are buttons, there's all kinds of things that can be done. And so you can use those at all stages of the disease as well. Being able to listen to that music from our past as well as worship music. If worship music and church was something from their past, please make sure that you keep that as part of their journey. Now, most churches are online, and so we can listen to or watch on a computer or on an iPad. Using some of the same things we used in those middle stages where we are listening to the wind chimes, we're doing the hand shoulder massage, we're putting on lotion because I can smell it and I can feel and I can touch. These late stages of the disease, make sure that you hear this. Your loved one may sleep up to 20 hours a day. Go back to that theory of retrogenesis. As we're approaching the end of dementia, it's just like the very beginning of life. That newborn can sleep up to 20 hours a day. A person getting toward the end of dementia can sleep up to 20 hours a day, and that's okay. That's what their body needs. They're not going to have as much intake because they don't need the fuel. Their body doesn't need that much fuel, and food is fuel. And eventually, it's not going to matter how much they eat because their body just isn't going to metabolize it anymore. And so we call that many times pleasure eating, where they still want to eat, but they want to eat the sweets. They want the ice cream. And let's let them have that pleasure. So here's a mealtime activity, and let's just look at it at each of the three stages. So in the earliest part of the disease, they can decide the meal. Let's come up with the menu. Let's make the list of the ingredients. We can even go to the store and get the ingredients and then organize the recipe. Do the prep work, cook it, serve it, and clean it up. All of that with reminder setups and cues. Same activity, but middle stage of the disease. They may be able to add the ingredients or the seasoning as directed. So I might hand them, here's the cup of flour, here's the teaspoon of salt, and they can still put it in and they can still stir, mix, or roll out the dough. Very likely, they can still put ice in the cups and they can still set the table. And at those late stages, same activity, they may be able to still add something to a bowl with my hand over hand where I'm assisting them. But they can also sit there, observe, smell, hear, and be part of the activity. It can be also considered like a passive participation where they're still there. They might not be hands on, but they are still there. They can still smell, they can still taste, they can still see. Now, this is a video about activities with a person with dementia, but it is 4 minutes. We don't have time for it. You're going to get it. Whenever you get a copy of these slides, you'll be able to watch that video. Whoops. I wanted to make sure and be able to get to these two resources. So ssww.com and allsstore.com. If you go there, you will find a lot of the things that we've pictured in this program, plus hundreds of others. And I encourage you, go and look there. You can always go to Amazon, compare prices. There's that ring that I told you about, that it's a big silver ring and it has dozens of different types of fabric on there that we can sort and touch and feel. There's another one of the busy boards where we can tie, Velcro, latch, zip. There's one of the cats. That's one of the robotic cats, and it purrs and it meows, and the eyes blink up and down. Some of them even roll over. The woman sitting in the chair, she has what's called a fidget pillow. And so it also has zippers and ties and things that you can do, but it's in the shape of a pillow. One of my favorites, it's in the lower left. This is a painting activity, and it's a white piece of paper, and you just put water on it, and the picture starts to appear. And when it dries, it goes away, and you can use it over and over and over again. And that's just a few of the activities that you can find. And again, please, please don't think my loved one would never, because dementia just might. I used to be the director of our day program, and I have tried all of these with all kinds of people and have surprised families sometimes when they would come in and go, "You mean my dad was dancing?" "Yes, your dad was dancing, and we were having a great time." So I hope that you're seeing a theme. I hope you're seeing a theme. And the theme is person-centered, relationship-centered. This isn't something that we just want to do and put in front of our loved one to keep them busy. This is something we want to do to share with them, to connect, so that we are creating memories for today. Communication is a big part of doing activities. So again, if you haven't seen our communication video, please watch that on YouTube. And also, all of the things we talked about today, these are non-pharmacological ways to intervene when maybe somebody's about to have or starting to have a challenging expression. This is my information here at the West Center. You can contact me, you can contact Jamie, you can contact us anytime. You will get a copy of this video. You'll also get a copy of the slides later today. Rain stick, yes, thank you, Jessica. Yes, you will get the slides and you'll get a copy of the video. Plus, it will be up on YouTube tomorrow. So thank you everybody for being here. If you need a CE, be looking for the later today. Jamie will send out a email. Thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your day.